Yeah, okay, so let's get started. Welcome everyone to the uh, academic year 24-25 and our Codex group meetings, which are usually happening every Thursday at 1:30. Although for this very first kickoff meeting, we are starting a little bit later at 2 o'clock today. Really appreciate everyone who's joining us. I hope everyone in our community had a relaxing summer with lots of great new ideas that can be brought to legal innovation and improving the legal system for all stakeholders, which is of course our mission at Codex. We have had a pretty productive summer. And maybe at some point we'll give you an update on our all our research that's happening here at Codex. But one of the main purposes, of course, of our group meeting is to invite in people from the global legal innovation community and share with the group what they're working on and kind of start a discussion and get feedback and generate some new ideas and new connections. So anyway, so today we have an amazing lineup of folks doing interesting work in a legal innovation space. We have Bill Marino, who is a doctoral student at the University of Cambridge, and he will present his research on what he calls compliance cards. And then we have Yuri Koslov, the CEO, and Maria Shutova, the CPO of Judge AI, which is automating this dispute resolution and in specific areas. And then we have Ofer Mendelevich, the head of developer relations at Vectara, which is a Gen AI platform that enables the building of AI assistants. And so three great presentations everywhere. We have an hour together. And so that means that each team has, or each group has like 20 minutes for their presentation. So what I typically ask presenters is to sort of keep it to about 10 minutes or so and keep about the same amount of time for discussion with the group. Everyone in the group can unmute themselves and ask questions, but you can also put your questions in the chat and we will try to relay them to the presenters at the right time. So with that, and also for you, everyone in the group, if you have any updates and news to share with the group or any needs, then just please put them in the chat. All right, so with that, I will turn it over to Bill. And yeah, the floor is yours, Bill.
Thank you so much, Roland. And thank you, Megan, for organizing this. Really appreciate the opportunity. So as Roland said, my name is Bill Marino. I'm a computer science PhD student at the University of Cambridge. I'm going to present some research in a system that we've been working on, which we like to call compliance cards. I have a magnificent team working with me on this effort. I'm very fortunate. A couple of those folks have joined me today, and I hope we'll chime in once we get to the Q&A part of this. Just let me know if my slides aren't showing.
Oh, we can see them.
Fantastic. So let me start by telling you about the problem that we've all spent a lot of time thinking about. The European Union's Artificial Intelligence Act, as you may know, went into force last month. If you're not familiar with it, it is a first of its kind comprehensive AI regulation that sets harmonized requirements for AI models and systems in the EU. Now, a key feature of this act that really drives a lot of the work that I'm going to be presenting today is the following. The Act's requirements don't just target the AI models and systems globally or overall. They also reach down in and target the components of those models and systems. By components, I mean the data sets and the pre-trained models that are integrated into them as ingredients. I'm going to give you two quick examples of this. Article 14 of the Act, data and data governance. It requires the providers of certain types of AI systems to exercise appropriate data governance on all training, validation, and test sets. So this is an example of a requirement that reaches down into those data sets. Article 15, accuracy, robustness, and cybersecurity. This one asks, again, the providers of certain types of AI systems to take certain measures to prevent, detect, and mitigate model poisoning. That's a type of attack on models. So this is a requirement that reaches down and affects those model components. Now, at the same time as these requirements are coming out, there's something happening in the AI landscape, and that is that our AI supply chain is getting increasingly, I like to say astoundingly, complex. Any given AI system or model that you encounter is increasingly likely to incorporate multiple, sometimes even dozens of ingredient data sets or pre-trained models. Where are these coming from? On the data set sides, these are open source models from Hugging Face, GitHub. They're private data sets from vendors. They're data sets that are integrated via models that have been integrated into an AI system or another model. On the pre-trained model side, again, they're coming from open source, from Hugging Face. They're coming from private vendors. And they're also being integrated via APIs, services like the ones that OpenAI offers, for example. I'm going to give you just one random example that I encountered in the wild just last week. I was looking for an AI text detector. You input text, it makes a prediction about whether that text was AI generated or human generated. I found a fantastic model on Hugging Face, fabulous paper attached to it. As I went through that paper, I tallied all of the model and data set ingredients in this single overall model. And I counted 8 data sets, actually, 4 of which were evaluation sets. That number might actually be much higher because we don't quite know all the data sets that Llama 2, which was one of the ingredients, all the data sets it was trained on. And then there was 2 models that were ingredients too. So this just shows you how complex, this single model example shows you how complex the AI supply chain is really getting. So what's the pain point that all of this leads to? Well, analyzing the ACT compliance level of a given AI system or model requires us to do the following. We first have to gather from all of the different suppliers of these components certain compliance-related information. So that means for this model example, for example, we have to go back to all these providers of data sets, all these providers of models, and we have to ask them questions like, what kind of data governance did you exercise over your data set? Or if it's a model, what steps did you take to prevent, detect, and mitigate model poisoning? So this can be quite a process, as you can imagine. Once we collect all of this, we have to harmonize it, which again could be pretty arduous given all the disparate suppliers that might be involved. And then last but not least, we have to render an analysis that looks across all of this information to make a single prediction about whether the aggregate system or model is compliant or not, thumbs up or thumbs down. Today, this analysis is going to be a human analysis. This is going to be someone who knows the ACT pretty well, that can sit down and synthesize all this documentation and then make a decision about whether the system or model is compliant. And as you can imagine, this is a pretty time-consuming process. And this puts a pretty heavy burden on organizations with low compliance resources like startups, small and medium-sized enterprises. It's also not amenable, this long time-consuming process, to some of today's increasingly rapid and real-time AI workflows. And here's what I mean by that. If you know what the AI development process looks like today, you are experimenting with lots of different combinations of models and data sets and hyperparameters to try to get performance that satisfies a certain use case. Wouldn't it be great as you're rapidly experimenting to get these compliance analyses in something that's close to real time? Similarly, if you're out there searching and acquiring ingredients, data sets on Hugging Face, models on Hugging Face, wouldn't it be great in real time to know if those candidate ingredients, when combined with the rest of your AI system or model, are compliant? To help solve some of these pain points, we have introduced compliance cards. This is a system for automated EU AI Act compliance analyses amidst this complex AI supply chain that I just talked about. There's 2 key elements to this compliance card system. I'm going to tell you a little bit about each one. The first are these innovative compliance card artifacts, and then the compliance cards algorithm. Let's talk about these compliance cards artifacts first. This is a set of interlocking computational artifacts They represent an evolution of earlier transparency artifacts that you might be familiar with. These are things like model cards. Our compliance cards capture EU AI Act related metadata about each component of an overall AI project in a manner that's easily operated on by the accompanying algorithm. We have three types of these compliance cards. This is really important. We have project compliance cards. These are for the overall AI system or the overall AI model. We have data compliance cards. Those are for each individual data set that's a component of this overall system or model. And we have something similar for models. Those are called model compliance cards. Now, what's really cool about these is that these can be populated by the party that is best equipped to populate them asynchronously and even separately. So, for example, an AI developer, a provider in the terminology of the Act, can fill out this project compliance card at their liberty, describing the overall project. Each individual provider of a data set can fill out these data compliance cards corresponding to their contribution to the aggregation. And the same for model creators. And when someone wants to run a compliance analysis for an overall project, they just need to join this set of compliance cards, Voltron style. If you're a child of the 80s, you get the reference, and then run that set, that join set, through the compliance cards algorithm. So what is this compliance cards algorithm? In the accompanying paper, we define this pretty broadly. This is any algorithm that operates on this set of compliance cards to produce a compliance prediction for the overall AI system or model. We have a Python implementation that we've just released to our GitHub. This is rules-based, but there's many other ways that you could design this algorithm. For example, we're really excited in the near future to work on a large language model-based version of this compliance cards algorithm. What's our vision? Our vision here is that the data and model suppliers of the world populate and publish data and model compliance cards, for example, by adding them to their corresponding model and data set profiles on Hugging Face. Then the AI model and systems providers of the world populate and optionally publish project compliance cards that describe the aggregate or the overall AI model or system that they're developing. We then we make this compliance cards algorithm widely available. I'd love to see it integrated into multiple applications out there, multiple platforms, so that anyone who wants to assess and run a compliance assessment on the full set of compliance cards for an aggregate AI system or model can do so. Who's going to be doing that? We have a couple ideas. Providers, the developers of AI systems and models, that's one important user here. These folks bear the heaviest compliance burden under the Act and own the workflows that we think benefit the most from this system. But there's also regulators. There are assessors. Some AI systems require pre-release conformity assessment done internally or by a third party. We think this could turbocharge that. I can even imagine a world where data and model suppliers get their hands on a project compliance card and then develop against it to get their data set or model closer and closer to a compliant aggregation of all the parts. Like I said before, we have a sample implementation today on our GitHub. We just released this. It has template compliance cards. These are embodied in YAML. We chose this because YAML can be easily appended to today's Hugging Face model or data cards YAML sections. We also have, as I mentioned, a Python implementation of the algorithm, and that's a rules-based implementation. We are about to unveil an accompanying application. This is a web app, and anyone's going to be able to come and take compliance cards that they found in the wild, maybe on people's Hugging Face model and dataset repos. You're going to be able to run compliance analyses on those, on the aggregation. You're also going to be able to create or edit your own compliance cards and then generate a compliance report on those that tells you whether the aggregation is compliant or not, and if not, where things got tripped up. Once again, my name is Bill Marino. This was Compliance Cards. Right there is our project website. I will drop my email in the chat as well. Thanks again, Roland and Megan, for the opportunity. Really appreciate it. And we have about 8 minutes for questions. My collaborators are welcome to, unmute themselves if they want to chime in to answer any of these questions.
Hi.
Awesome. Thank you
Oh,
so much. Oh, it sounds like there's already a question. Who is that?
hi. This is Miriam from Axiom Law. I don't know if you can hear me.
Hey, yes, we can hear you
Yeah.
well. What's your question?
Yeah, Bill, this is great. I actually I was interviewed on an article for the EU AI Act, and one of the biggest concerns I had is how can companies even look into if they're compliant or not? So this is very timely. In terms of the popularization of what you're doing, have you reached out to the EU agencies with your framework so that they can then distribute it to companies so there's more awareness of what you guys do?
We haven't yet, but I would love to. If anyone here has connections, we'd love an intro. We definitely saw that happening eventually. Haven't done it yet, but very eager to do so. Great idea.
Great. Yeah, reach out to me outside of this because it really is difficult to know how to be compliant with a new law that is so technical. So a lot of people are going to be struggling with this as they start enforcing it more.
100%. And I've just dropped my email in the chat, by the way. And Miriam, thank you so much for your comment. I'll definitely reach out.
And Vinay is asking, might you elaborate a bit on your compliance algorithm?
Sure, I appreciate this. I should have said another sentence or two about it. So this again it's a rules-based algorithm today. That's the V1 implementation. What we're really doing is we're encoding knowledge about the Act. We're encoding the requirements of the Act in Python. It's out there. It's open source. Please, you're encouraged to try it out. Help us debug it. Yeah, that's a little bit more about the algorithm itself.
Okay. Right. So, yeah, sorry, Pamela is, also offering to connect you up with some folks,
Thank you.
and put her email address in there. That's great. Thank you, Pamela. I'm wondering, so what are your aspirations for this? Is this sort of like, kind of more of a sort of research project and maybe open source project, or will this have some, do you have some commercial ambitions too? Since you created an app, maybe the EU Act is sort of just, the first entry is sort of a project for compliance, and you might go after other areas of compliance and so on.
Yeah, I really appreciate the question, Roland. Thank you. I'm a former startup founder, product manager before I was a researcher. I love getting stuff out there into the world and trying to get adoption of it. So our goal with this project is to try to work with platforms and see if we could integrate this or some descendant of it. I would love, for example, again, I alluded to this in the presentation, but I would love to see a world where model and data set creators could paste this kind of metadata into their model and data, their existing model and data cards on Hugging Face, and then anyone could run this analysis. For me, that's the dream scenario. I'd love to see this in practical use. And to answer another question you asked in there, I would love also to eventually extend this to other regulations. We all know that the rest of the world is cooking up their own AI regulations, and those will eventually start coming down the pipeline. And we see this as kind of a proof of concept for future regulations as well, AI regulations.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. This concept of automated compliance management, right, is like, I think there's a huge opportunity space for, from rules-based to LLM-based legal AI, and this is a great example. I'm wondering if you see any other players trying to move into that space. I feel like there may be some that are also experimenting with automated EU compliance. Was for the GDPR, GDRP, sorry. There's been a lot of legal tech in that space, and it seems like the EU AI Act has sort of opened new pastures for potential innovation on.
Definitely. Yeah, I really appreciate the question. So we have a new version of the paper, the compliance cards paper that was just submitted to archive. I bet it'll go live on Monday or so, if I know archive schedule well enough. You're going to find we cite a couple startups who are doing something similar. They're not disclosing the algorithm behind the curtain. So our goal really here is to democratize this by making it open, creating an open standard that maybe all of the different machine learning communities and platforms could adopt. And again, really democratize this and reduce the barrier to these kinds of compliance analyses, break down the walls, and make this something any startup or small and medium-sized enterprise could potentially do. If not to fully automate it, then maybe to reduce the resources that they need to put into it.
Got it. Okay. And then maybe last question from Daza. What are the pros and cons of taking rules-based approach rather than LLM reasoning and augmentation?
Yeah, does one of my collaborators want to chime in on this? I'm happy to pass the baton if anyone else wants to chime in. Otherwise, I'll take a pass at it.
I'm happy to talk a little bit about this.
Yeah.
Jakob probably knows even more. I would say that, oh yeah, I'm Isaac. I'm a PhD student at Oxford, though I'm hoping to apply to law school soon as well. I think the main benefit of a rules-based approach is determinism and precision. So we avoid the scenario where we tell somebody they're compliant, whereas like they're actually not, because it's like a very deterministic, basically like decision tree of like, if you follow all these things, then you're certainly compliant. And this works well for like an initial implementation and works well with like the way that the law is structured. Certainly the con is that we're probably missing some scenarios, right? It's very difficult to capture all possible spaces in like a deterministic rules-based approach. This is why I guess we have like courts and things to interpret laws, because maybe like exact decision trees aren't sufficiently expressive. And so LLM reasoning and augmentation would help with that. I think that's definitely something that we're maybe looking to move towards. But the problem is these things like hallucination, where we could end up in a scenario where we tell somebody that they're compliant, where in reality they're not, and that's like a pretty bad use case. Versus I think we're more willing to accept like the false negatives of like, oh, we tell somebody they're not compliant even though maybe they are. Maybe that's like what is more likely with the rules-based approach, and maybe that's less bad than like covering more scenarios where like it's more ambiguous whether or not you're compliant. So I think that's one of the main reasons why we went with this approach. But yeah, happy if you add anything else, Bill, or Jakob.
Yeah, great.
No, co-sign everything you said. Thank you, Isaac. Well said.
Just a comment from like a compliance perspective, and this is the fascinating thing about AI. With privacy, for example, if you go through the checklist, then you can say, I reasonably did everything I'm supposed to, therefore any kind of breaches or failures are not necessarily making me as a company liable. But with AI, because it has the potential of generating things, especially if we're using generative AI in our offering as companies, that's where it's so much riskier to say, oh, we went through the checklist, it seemed fine. So it's just a fascinating space from a compliance perspective, and so many of our clients are struggling because it's not as easy as saying, oh, we did the things we're supposed to, so therefore we're fine.
Yeah, thank you, Mary. That's a great point too, and yeah, we have to just move along, and there's so much more to discuss on that topic, and we hope we will have other opportunities to discuss more on this and see compliance cards kind of continued success, and really appreciate you, Bill, kind of joining us here today and getting us started thinking about this. It's a very cool project. It makes a ton of sense. And we wish you all the luck in the world to make it a big success. And hopefully there's something we can do to support you along the way. Thank you so much, Bill. And yeah, so round of applause for you and your entire team. This is very impressive. And thanks for sharing. All right, so let's turn it over to Yuri and Maria from Judge AI and see what they're building.
Just could you please let us know if you can see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, that's perfect.
My name is Yuri. I am CEO at Judge AI, and I am responsible for developing the legal algorithms. This algorithms is our main intellectual property.
Hi everyone. My name is Maria. I'm product manager at Judge AI, so I'm responsible for the vision of the product And thank you so much for such a great opportunity to present the product today and share ideas. That's just really inspiring idea. And we also, by the way, have our CTO, who is Taha, who is probably watching us today, and so maybe he will be also able to answer some questions.
Hello.
Yeah, hi Taha. So let us introduce JudgeEye. So this is the product we've been working on for the past 2 years, and at JudgeEye we are building an AI court. So we are exploring opportunities of creation of fully automated court without the human judge. The main idea behind the project, behind the product, is to, first of all, avoid using any pre-trained data to make decisions unbiased and independent. And also, we are solving the problem of falling into black box, which is a common problem for LLM. And to solve this problem, Yuri has developed special legal algorithms, and I will be happy to guide you through the main aspects of these algorithms and how they work. And let us proceed with the first stage. So here, basically, JudgeEye extracts information from the documents uploaded by plaintiff and defendant. This is one of the 2 cases where we use LLM. So here we can extract such data as the names of the parties, claim amount, specific claim demand, arguments of the party, so all the factual information. It helps us to proceed with the next stage, where JudgeEye operates within 2 main branches. Let me just give you a quick overview. So first branch is evidence evaluation. So here we are building a factual case fable from the evaluation of evidence we could see during the first stage. Another branch, which is also quite important, in this branch, we are building ideal parties behavior model. And after this, so the system, JudgeEye, compares these 2 parts, these 2 fabulas, and also analyzes if there are any deviations, which is also quite important. And a bit later, we'll be also explaining why. And this is how the final judgment is being made. I suggest we start taking a closer look with the first branch, evidence evaluation. And so this is how it looks like. So first of all, JudgeEye extracts direct and possible facts, so defines direct and possible facts. Direct facts are the ones that can be directly supported by evidence, whereas possible facts are the ones that can only indirectly be supported by evidence. After that, the possible and direct facts are being compared, and in this case, possible facts, 2 possible facts contradicting one another, will be excluded from further analysis. The same thing happens to possible fact contradicting a direct fact. In this case, this possible fact will be also excluded from further analysis. After this cross-analysis, only direct facts and non-conflicting possible facts remain. And after that, they are being analyzed in terms of how much each evidence is important regarding the presumption of subject matter of proof. So this it's important to mention here that we distinguish between key circumstances, derivative facts, and indirect facts here. And for example, in case if there is a direct contradiction of facts regarding the same key circumstances, for example, in this case, we evaluate the strength of the evidence. The strength of the evidence can be assessed by how easy this evidence can be falsified, actually. So if contradictory evidence so if the evidence is classified as equally strong, for example, cross-evaluation is conducted to see how much each piece of evidence is supported by, for example, indirect facts presented by the opposing party. And once all these facts, true facts, have been analyzed and have been defined, they are compiled into a single chronology of the party's behavior, of the party's action. So this is how it looks like. After this, so we are done with the first branch, evidence evaluation, and we are moving on to the second branch, which is also quite important because in this case, JudgeEye builds ideal parties behavior model. How it looks like. first of all, Judge AI defines the purpose of the contract, defines the contract terms, and these contract terms help us to build a frame for ideal behavior of the parties. So what happens next? We've been discussing how the facts analysis is being conducted. So at this stage, Judge AI assesses how established facts could affect the ability of the parties to fulfill the contract terms. So each fact is assigned a special evaluation, does not affect, partially affect, or prevents. So this is actually how it looks like, the algorithm, which is quite complex. So after that, Judge AI defines and formulates 12 possible scenarios of parties' behavior. It's important to mention that this is the second case where we use the capabilities of large language models, so only 2 cases where we use it. And after this, these scenarios, these 12 scenarios, range from the most dishonest behavior to the most altruistic one. For each, so actually from this scenario, from these 12 generated scenarios, those that could, I would say, realistically occur on the nature of the contractual relationship, so these scenarios are selected. For each realistic scenario, we identify the overall utility of the parties under the contract and proportional distribution of the utility determined here. And in the end, the scenario with the highest, so you can see it here, like it has been highlighted here, the scenario with the highest total utility for both parties, where the distribution ratio is closest or is equal to the contract terms, is selected. It's quite interesting that in our product, we have 2 versions. We call the versions codified and non-codified. So non-codified version is the one where we, well, basically analyze the contract terms, and contract terms help us to form the ideal behavior of the parties. Whereas there is also one more version, codified, where we can also rely on the legal norms. And in this case, there is an opportunity for the product to be adjusted to any jurisdiction. For example, we have developed a special demo version aimed at the United Arab Emirates jurisdiction, for example. So this is the only difference. So we can also analyze in accordance with the legal norms. So what happens next? We compare. So we have done the first branch, evidence evaluation, the second branch, ideal parties behavior model. And we compare, so Judge AI compares these 2 fabulas, and also it analyzes if there are any deviations. Deviations, well, this is quite an important factor, because if there are no deviations, the claim will be denied. Yeah, so the case will be denied. If we have, if the system has found any deviations, first of all, the system will analyze, it's important for the system to determine which party is responsible for these deviations and whether the damage from this deviation can be quantified based on the case materials and whether the deviation itself affects the purpose of the contract. And the final decision is based actually on this analysis of the deviation. I suggest, if you don't mind, we test the product. So can you please let me know if you can see it?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So this is actually how our product looks like. I click on automated judicial processing. And today we will be analyzing the case, a real case between Elon Musk and OpenAI. So, and I will be the plaintiff now. I will be uploading my document, my claim. So, and just to give it the context, so I click on submit. Just to give you the context, we are now on this first stage where Judge AI is extracting the information from the uploaded document. Usually it takes no more than just 1 minute, but for sure it can depend on the length of the document. Sometimes it can also depend on the workload of the system, but usually no more than just 1 minute. So this is how it looks like. We can proceed with uploading the response. And the same is happening to the response from the defendant. Yeah, so I click on submit. So again, the facts, all the factual information is being analyzed. So again, it will take no more than 1 minute, so usually. And after that, both parties have the chance to present additional documents if there are any. In our case, we don't have anything, so we just click no objection. And at this stage, the facts and evidence from both documents are being analyzed in accordance with the algorithm we have discussed. So, and the full process usually, like the full iteration, we call it an iteration, lasts for about 10 minutes. Again, depending on the how much the case, how complicated the case is. It's important while the system is analyzing, I would like to point out that in Judge AI, we use not only prompt code, natural language instructions, but also a wide range of mathematical formulas such as fuzzy logic, for example. Fuzzy logic helps us to estimate the strength of the evidence. We also use Nash equilibrium, for example, for helping us to determine the theory of contract, for helping us to determine the ideal parties behavior. So something I was describing in the second branch. So, and we are, so just to give you the context, what's happening now, again, we are analyzing the facts according to the algorithms, and we will be analyzing, you will see it later, we will be analyzing the deviations and ideal parties behavior. In the future, we are planning to implement more mathematical formulas to make the system even more accurate and precise. And for example, so you can see ideal phrenology, for example, right? So this is what happens after the facts have been analyzed. For example, today, I guess just maybe 30 minutes before the meeting, we found out that ChatGPT is about to release new version 01, which is supposed to be even more helpful in terms of calculations. So we are really looking forward to using it as well. So our decision is ready, actually. So you can see that we have processed all the stages we were discussing in the algorithm, and we made the final judgment. So you can see the structure here. So with all the detailed information, here we have the deviations, for example, from the ideal behavior, something we analyzed to form the decision. Usually, we don't analyze, actually, we don't evaluate the decision made by Judge AI, because we do want to be independent. But in this case, it's important to mention that, for example, although we use ChatGPT in our system, in this case, Judge AI makes a decision not in favor of OpenAI, yeah, but in favor of Elon Musk, for example. So which gives us an idea that the system can be really like unbiased. So the process took even less than 10 minutes. I cannot say exactly because I didn't pay attention to time now, but this is how it looks like. We are also, we have one more option. We are able to download a report, for example. So for forming like second opinion, this is how it looks like. I can just briefly describe. So this is what a potential customer can upload to see the judgment made by Judge AI, with all the information presented in a more structured way. So all the outputs you could see it here in a more structured way. Our plans for the future, if we get back to our main ideas, as I said, we're planning to use as many analytical tools as possible. So some of them you can see in this slide. We're also looking forward to testing the new version of ChatGPT. And also one of the ideas we have is blockchain integration. It can help to make Judge AI even as I have already mentioned, more accurate, which is the top priority for us. And it can really help to resolve economic disputes for different companies who might be really interested in that. So this is our main idea for the future. This is our team. And we will be happy to answer your questions. You can always reach out to us in LinkedIn or via email. Thank you so much for your attention. And yeah, we'll be happy to answer your questions.
Cool. Thank you, Maria. Wow, this is fascinating. So you've built a robo judge basically, and which invites all the questions that people have always asked when confronted with that concept. From the worries about built-in bias to automation bias if somebody else defers that to that system, to how does it exactly how does it weigh evidence and the strength of evidence, and you explained it, but this is very great material for more discussion. It's amazing what you guys are trying to do. I just Das is saying, I think that ruling might show more bias and other problems given the full context, not necessarily that it's less biased. Ronald's asking if you could share your presentation slides. Jasmine's asking, how about evidence that's not text-based, images and so on. And Hyun saying, great idea and presentation. Could you specify which mathematical formulas you currently are using and what you're looking to implement in the near future, and how do you know what law to apply? And have you tried? So okay, so the questions are rolling in, and so I gave you sort of a preview. Maybe you can do like sort of a quick sort of roundabout reaction to that, and then maybe you can reserve more detailed exchanges on that for you to take offline, because otherwise we'll have to spend the rest of the meeting on this. But I think also for me it's like, so this is gonna be an alternative dispute resolution service, right?
Exactly. This is the main idea for the future as well. So currently we are looking forward to start as a kind of co-pilot for judges, and we are already waiting for the feedback. We are in the process of negotiating, establishing a sandbox with the government of United Arab Emirates to test it with the real judges and to receive real feedbacks. So this is the first idea, but in the future, for sure, we would like to build a system for alternative dispute resolution. It's also important to know that we are currently dealing with economic dispute in resolutions only. And there was a good question regarding the uploading images, for example, as evidence. Theoretically, so it can be possible. I guess Taha can support me here better. But the point is that it depends on the tools we are using. So if we manage to find a perfect tool, for sure it will be
Yeah, I'll chip in. Yeah, we actually did try this stuff. For example, there was a case, if you remember, that in which we were, it was the cable damages case, and the defendant basically shared an image. So what we are doing is that we have a top level AI agent which also uses multimodal LLMs. For example, there are no LLMs like ChatGPT can take images, Llama can take images. So it basically takes the images and it sees if the evidence is true or not. And for example, for bank statements, we have another agent which only deals in time series. So it sees that bank statement along with the time series to establish kind of a baseline.
Cool. Well, it certainly, it kind of removes like the human theatrics from the courtroom a little bit, right? Like the very kind of charismatic lawyer giving the closing statement, or being able to convince the jury about how much weight to give to a particular piece of evidence. So anyways, but this is like This is great and fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm sorry we have to move on to our next speaker, but really appreciate you coming in, and please keep us posted. And if folks, I think you saw Maria's contact info. Maybe you put it in the chat one more time so that people have it, and then they can sort of reach out to you directly with maybe more questions or maybe some opportunities where you could potentially collaborate with folks in this group. So thank you again. Quick round of
Thank you so much. Thank you.
applause to you all. And yeah, so let's turn it over to Ofer. Turn it over to Ofer, and he will be taking it from here. All right, so over to you, Ofer.
Hi everyone. Thanks. Great presentations, everybody. Thank you. I'm gonna try to, given the time, rush through this a little bit more quickly, but I think we'll be fine. I want to get to the demo at the end. So I'm Ofer from Victara, and if I can pass on, and I've had developer relations, and this is a little bit about my background. And I've been working in LMs for quite a while, more than most people, since about 2019. When GPT was kind of version 2. So I've been working in this space for quite a while. Now, what does my company do? My company's called Victara. We're headquartered in Palo Alto, and we build what we call a trusted Gen AI platform, and I'll share with you what that means here. So many of you, I'm sure, have heard the word RAG, but just in case you haven't, RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation, and essentially, it's a way to use kind of LLMs in a way that points it to your custom data or your private data. So if you have your regular LLM, you have a user query, you send it to the LLM, it essentially just responds based on what it was trained on. Whereas with RAG, you put all your data, imagine all your documents for a case or anything like that. And there's a retrieval step, that's what's called retrieval augmented generation, that pulls out the most important facts from those documents, and it could be 1 million documents, and brings it over to the LLM and says, hey, please respond to this question, but based on very relevant information that I bring from my own data. So it doesn't just depend on stuff that is outside. So this is a very common strategy in sort of the world of enterprise AI now, because you can run, use an LLM with your own data. It helps reduce hallucinations quite a bit. There's no fine-tuning or training involved, so it's actually not very expensive in a sense, or doesn't require a lot of management of GPUs and such. Your data remains private, again, because you don't train the data on anything. It's just, there's no data leak problems with that. And I'll show in a minute, there's also citations and explainability. So you can get the facts that I showed kind of here on this side. You can point in a response to those facts so people can look it up. Maybe it's a relevant case or maybe some other thing, which helps build user trust in the response itself. It's not just, here's what I think, and you don't know where to look for where you get the information. So this is kind of how RAG works. And I'm showing this just to say, you might have heard of a lot of ways to build RAG technically. And the way it works, there's 2 different flows. One is called the ingest flow, where you take documents, maybe from an S3 bucket or folder or anywhere, you upload them, you extract the text from it, you do something called chunking, use a model called an embedding model, you put it in something called a vector database, and it's ready to be used. And then the query flow is where you take, you get the user query, and you embed that query with a variant of the same embedding model, and then you run some similarity search to find the most relevant matches. It's called semantic search. Sometimes you're re-ranking. You craft a prompt to the LLM telling it, please answer this question, but take into consideration all these facts I just provided to you. And you call the LLM. And there's actually something, we recently added this stack called the HHEM, which is a hallucination detection model. So even with all the stuff, the generative AI may look at the facts and make something up because they do hallucinate. And so there's a way to detect those in real time and even correct them before you return it back to the user. So there's a lot of ways that you can help this process be better. And at Victara, what we do is so a lot of people build this themselves. They partner with a vector database. They get an embedding model from Hugging Face. They do all these components themselves, which is fine. we target more companies who don't want to become experts in building this technical stack. And so what we do is we have these APIs, and all of this thing you see in this block essentially is behind the scenes. We manage it for you. We make sure that it's always running, always optimized for latency, performance, etc. Security too. And last thing I want to say is we started the company as a kind of as a service. So you can upload the stuff to our cloud and we run all the system for you. And this is important for big law firms too, I think, is it's now available to be installed on your VPC in your environment and also on premise. So I'm going through this relatively quickly. This is RAG, and I can talk about this for much longer, but I wanted to get to the agents, which I was promising in the title. So we think about use cases in RAG in two ways. One we call assistants and one we call AI agents. So AI assistants will be question answering or chatbots, and we've seen many of those that use RAG underneath the covers, but they only answer a question or to generate a response that's written in some way. Whereas the AI agents are things that actually take action. That's the next step of evolution, where they might actually send an email or set up an appointment or something like this. So they actually take action. So hallucinations become more important to avoid when you have agents, because the example is if your agent has your credit card and books a flight and it's hallucinating and having the wrong flight, that's probably not a good idea. All right. Let me see how I'm doing on time here. All right. So this is probably not new to all of you, but if you look at LLMs, I try to create a list of RAG specific use cases that I think are really good enough to talk to anybody about others that they have, but kind of a legal assistant is pretty obvious to do research on case law and things like this. Lots of really important use cases there. Due diligence is something that came up recently. We have actually a customer doing that, where you can have a data room, for example, and you want to just quickly review information there. Discovery optimization when you have a litigation, and was mentioned earlier in the EU talk too about regulatory and compliance cards. That's a pretty big use case. Now let me skip this. This is one of our customers. I want to talk about agentic RAG. So what is agentic RAG? This is kind of the new thing in the last 2 or 3 months. And people talk about agentic RAG in terms of an agent. So think of this as a running or powered by some LLM, let's say GPT-4o or GPT-o1 that just came out this morning. And you give the agent control over, so interaction with the user come from here. It looks at your query and it has a bunch of tools. They call them tools. It can be any Python function. It can be a call to a REST API in your organization, or to an external service like a LexisNexis or something like this. But importantly, it could also be a RAG tool that calls, in this case, Victara, right? And so that's really the structure of it. And it's a very, very powerful paradigm to create more powerful generative AI systems. The tool essentially the agent gets the query and reasons about how to best address it. So we just recently launched something called Victara Agentic. It's in beta. And essentially, this is the simplest form of agent you can use. If you put some data, let's say a bunch of case law data, on your Victara corpus or Victara system, you can give it all the credentials. You can tell it that the agent needs to be, in this case, medical plan benefits or whatever, Medicare, whatever this in this example. And you just create an engine, you can start asking it a question. So what I wanted to get to, and I'm sorry for rushing through this, is this demo. This is something I built recently with Victara Agentic. It's based on this case law access project. And so the demo, where is it? I think it's this link. All right. So this is a demo. It's hosted on Hugging Face, but it's just a place to run it for me. So this is using all the case law from the state of Alaska. Why Alaska? Because I was lazy. Was the first letter A? The data set is much bigger and has, I think, all the case law in the US. And you see, you can ask a question. It behaves in this case like a chatbot. But if I, for example, ask it this question, the agent will now look at this question and try to understand and figure out, based on the tools that I've given it, what can I do? What types of how to answer this question? So you can see provided an answer, even with some interesting references and links to relevant case law. Now, if we look at what's happened underneath the covers, you can see that it called this Victara tool that I gave it with this question and got the response with also some citations that you see here. Now I can sort of ask, please summarize. I don't know, let's do Tenala versus Fowler, right? So the demagogues are going to be with me here. What it will do is it will find out where their case is. It will download the full case. Okay, let's see if it did that, what I was expecting. So it had another tool called get opinion text, which is just a Python function. And that Python function you need to provide it with the case citations and kind of whether you want to summarize or give it the full text. And so the agent here, I asked it about this law. It pulled from the metadata the actual citation because it knew that a tool would not work on this name but required a citation number. So it pulled the right citation. It knew that I wanted to summarize, so it set this flag to true and gave me the final outcome, which is this. So this is really cool. It's a very powerful paradigm to extend and build different agents however you want to do that. All right, and that's the demo, and there's some more resources here if you're interested in building. If you have a dev team in your law firm or you want to build something with Victara, there's some resources here of how to sign up, and I'm also available to help. If you want to reach out to me, you can use this QR code. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ofer. This is very cool also. And yeah, I'm wondering, like, how big do you think the sort of the legal tech market is for you all as an sort of a vertical? How important a vertical is that for you, in other words?
It's a great question. I mean, we see to me, we're a horizontal company. We do not just service the legal team, and there are specific companies that do just a particular type of agent, right? An agent for this or an agent for that, and that's the product they serve. We're a developer tool, so we see the customers are customers who have enough of a problem with this, and an IT team that would be able to implement this because it's a small firm. They usually don't have the developer resources. We're a developer tool, so they don't have the resources to develop this. So I think it's mostly the larger firms, maybe the medium type firms, that the tools that they see in the market are not good enough for them and they want to develop something in-house, particularly because a lot of the tools do ask you to get the data out to them. And we have this VPC option or on-prem option, which allows you to keep all the stuff in-house.
Cool. All right. Anyone else in the group has any questions for Ofer? Yeah, I think so. I think it's very interesting. I think that concept of going from, the chatbots to, to agents is like so fascinating. And, we were at our recent LLM and law hackathon, and I believe most, of the 50 project or so that was submitted by the, almost 500 people who were there were all on agentic AI, right? And so it is the next frontier, and to think about it in terms of like being able to complete tasks, but then also understanding, that the ramifications, if hallucinations happen in sort of completing a task, can be more serious, right? Than if you just get the wrong information. But if you if you have a complete task completion and it's based on a hallucination, then you can sort of just the liability, potential liability is.
Yeah, I gave the example. It's a great point, because I gave the example of a credit card. So okay, you lose some money, but if somebody, let's say, goes to jail because of a hallucination, it's of course a much worse outcome, right?
Yeah.
You have to be really careful using this technology.
Yeah, Ofer, could you also, I mean, we're sort of at the end of our time, so I think this is very cool. And for me, as not having the same facility as many of you in terms of like putting all the piping together and using all this long chain of tools, right? that are used to create these agents and systems. I mean, just the way you explained that RAG pipeline and the systems that you appear to provide, I think seems to kind of lower the entry barriers, even more, and make it more accessible, to domain experts or domain expert with some technical knowledge to actually put things together and try out new things, right? And so I appreciate you showing these very concrete examples with the case law access project. And so I think that was very effective. And I will say, so one Hyun is asking, where he or she, I'm sorry, I'm not sure, probably she can find out more about your hallucination checker, HHEM. Sorry, I'm not so good with Korean names.
Yeah, let me share a link for this really quickly. It's actually on Hugging Face. It's open source, and let me share that here in the chat. So there's both the hallucination detection model. Of course, if you use Vectara, you don't have to use the model yourself and compute it because it comes back with our queries. But we also thought it was useful for the community, so contributed as open source. And the link is right there. There's also something else interesting, which is called the HHEM leaderboard, which I'll share here. And this is also interesting. We decided to use the HHEM to rank how much hallucinations each LLM type does. So GPT-4, Gemini, different types, and they're not all the same. Some hallucinate more than others. So it's a very popular leaderboard because people want to use the one that hallucinates the less. 01 that just came this morning. We didn't get to add it quite yet, but hopefully later today. So the new OpenAI model.
Great. Well, okay. Well, Ofer, thank you so much. Maria and Bill and all your teams, thank you so much for presenting today. These presentations today, for me, I think kind of drove home why we care so much about these regular group meetings, because in a very short time, I feel like I learned a tremendous amount, and you all are really doing important work, and you're great teachers. So thank you so much for sharing and explaining your ideas and innovations to us. And I think that was a really unique opportunity for our group. And so thank you again, and please keep us posted. Thank you all for joining us for our kickoff session for this academic year. We look forward to seeing you throughout the year. If you want to present your work, please reach out to me or to Megan, and then we'll be happy to schedule a presentation. We'll let you know when our next session is coming up. I think probably not next week, but the week
It is next week.
Yes, next week. Okay. So then because I will be in traveling, then maybe Megan will run the session. But good. So good to see you all, and see you next week then. All right. Bye-bye. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.